Welcome back to a windy but gorgeous day out on the dock today, and we are talking about this weapon light right here. This is the Modlite PL350, and I am a little bit late to this party, but that is intentional. This light has been out for a couple years now. I think it came out in 2021, but it had a ton of problems when it first came out, but a lot of folks really were gravitating to it because of the performance that the light had. So when it was initially released and I started seeing some of the initial reports, I was kind of torn. Do I get one in for review? Do I not? Do I wait for them to kind of work the kinks out? And I decided to go that route. Now, I have zero relationship with Modlite at all. I have a number of their rifle-oriented lights, and I've been very happy with them. That said, just full disclosure, guys, I try to keep like my personal bias out of things in terms of companies and try to give you guys an objective look. That said, they have been a very controversial company in terms of how they've handled media, PR. So just know that going forward. If you guys look down in the comments, I'm sure you're going to see a huge debate about it. Obviously, I have my opinion, but I'm going to try to keep that to myself as much as possible throughout the review and focus on the light itself. So, like I said, I have no relationship with Modlite, so I reached out to the folks at Brownells and asked them to send this one out for this review. I have a great relationship with the folks at Brownells, and they don't care what I say about the light, so it kind of works out. That wind is kicking. Anyway, what's really cool and groundbreaking about this light, at least as of the time when it was released, was just the output. So it has two different head options. So for folks that don't know, that's kind of how Modlite works. Their heads work on all of their lights. And this one here is the OKW head. This one is designed for more Candela, less lumens. So I think it's like 680 lumens and 69,000 Candela. They also make a PLH head, which we'll show you here in a second because I have both. The PLH is actually one of my personal home defense rifle lights. So that just shows you I like Modlite products. We're going to show you the PLH head on this as well as the OKW head. You can interchange them or you can just buy them separately if you want. That is kind of one of the cool things about the Modlites. And the PLH head has a little bit more lumens, a little bit less Candela, but both of them are super high output. And at the time that they came out, nothing could compete with them in terms of output for pistol lights, particularly for something that was American made. So a lot of folks were really interested in them. And the basic design of it is that it comes with these switches. It has a number of different switches that it comes with from the factory. That said, one of the early failure points of these lights that you guys will see if you look around online is that their switches just had problems. Lots and lots of problems when they first came out. Plagued with problems. That said, from what I've seen in the more recent lights, I think this one was made like 7 months ago as of when I'm recording this video. My switches have been perfectly fine, perfectly tactile, perfectly audible, great feedback as designed. So I have not personally had any issues with the switches. Another thing that's cool about it or interesting or different about it is their inserts here. So they have a number of different inserts that come with it. They have the universal, the 1913, etc. that does come with it. Initially, these were polymer. So what was happening is basically your rail interface was polymer, and then you had this little hex key screw there, torque screw rather, and that was what you tightened it down with. Well, folks were really seeing that after anywhere between 500 to 1,500 rounds on a pistol, that piece of polymer was just breaking or moving backwards in the actual mount itself, and lights were shooting off guys' guns. It was pretty prolific. If you guys look back 2 or 3 years ago when these things were coming out, you guys will see a lot of problems with it. Now they've changed it, which is exactly what I was waiting for. So right now, these are all aluminum, the inserts there. And this light right now has at least 3,000 rounds through it, probably more, mounted all on pistols. Well, not all on pistols, probably like 300 or 400 on rifles, but primarily on pistols. And I've had no issues. You guys can see there's no deformation, no nothing with it. I also used the standard OEM, like the ones that come with it from the factory switches. Although, like I said, they come with a number of different switches. No issues with the switches. So the head on these is pretty darn cool. And you can see in terms of size, it will compare pretty favorably to the Surefire. It's pretty close, a little bit larger. And then you guys should see some photos rolling in of the Streamlights as well. It's definitely larger than the Streamlights. So some Surefire holsters will fit it. That said, there are holsters that are purpose designed for the light. So the head comes off, like I said, swappable with either one. From the factory, it does have good lubrication on the threads. Has a good O-ring seal on there. These are waterproof. You can throw them underwater for a long time and not have any issues with it. Comes with a rechargeable battery. This is the 18350, and it does have a standard button top. So a lot of companies will come with like standard rechargeable batteries, but they're not like an industry standard size, if that makes sense. So for example, in 18350, the standard has the button top. You'll see other brands that don't use the button top. So if you go on Amazon and you try to buy these, these are the ones that you guys will see. So good on Modlite for that. That is definitely a pro of these lights, and they are rechargeable. That said, the benefit of these is in terms of the output and the power that you can get with them. It just gives you a much more powerful application than what you'd get, say, with two CR123As. The downside is going to be the runtime. So the runtime on this light is roughly 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how you're running it and how you're cycling it, versus something that uses like two CR123As that aren't going to give you as much like on-demand horsepower, but will give you a longer runtime. So pros and cons to each, but that is how it goes back together. I should also note that some folks, when these first came out, had issues with the head because the head screws on like this, as you guys can see. Some folks had issues with the heads walking off as well under firing. I've never had any of that. So I guess it's not a very good intro for the PL350, but I just have to give you guys a warning because I know people are going to see it if you look around online, but I'm trying to review my light independently and kind of give you guys my take on what I've seen with the current production ones. And I suppose with that, let's take a look at the beam output of these lights versus the two competitive offerings that most folks are going to be looking at, which is the Surefire X300 Turbo. Full review of this light is up on the channel, and then the 1000 lumen TLR1 HL. And you guys will see how the beam pattern compares to these lights, and then we'll come back here and close it out. For those of you that are new here, the spot where the wood fence meets the iron fence is approximately 35 feet away, and then those trees there in the background are 45, 50 feet away, depending on the actual tree. The output that you're seeing right now is from the Surefire Turbo. You guys can get an idea of that good hot spot. It does have some spill, but certainly not a ton. I'll turn the light off there so you guys can get an idea. We do have some lume out here tonight, probably about a half a moon in terms of illumination. Now here is the Modlite. You guys can get an idea of what that beam pattern looks like. Again, you do have some spill, but we do have a pretty harsh edge. Just for comparison's sake, there is the Surefire right here on your right. There is your Modlite. I'll put them both on the fence. Pretty similar. The Modlite might be a touch tighter, but not much. The beam pattern here that you're seeing is from the Streamlight TLR1 HL. This is the 27,000 Candela version. You can see a very balanced spill. That's one thing this light is known for sure. And then by comparison, here is the Modlite. We've changed spots now to the cross lake view, and basically I'm about 10 yards on my side of the shore. Across the lake is about 100 yards, 110 yards depending on the spot, and then there's a fishing shack about 10 yards behind that. Again, my camera's on manual, and we do have some natural noise pollution as well as the moon out here tonight, so it's as close to what I see with my human eye as possible. So first up, we will shine the Modlite out there, and that's that little fishing shack I was talking about. You guys can see we do have a bush right here on my property, and it is still illuminating that a little bit, but of course the hot spot is going all the way out there, and I will just tell you that it's pretty darn visible with the human eye. When I zoom in, that's about as close to what I see with my human eye as possible. If somebody was standing there, I'd be able to see them clearly. I'd be able to see if they had something in their hand, probably be able to identify it as well. I mean, that is a torch out there for sure. Now, just for comparison's sake, we will throw up the Surefire, and that is the output that you see there from the Surefire Turbo, and it's pretty similar, I would say, honestly. You guys can see again with it focused on the actual hut there, the bush is still illuminated by the spill. And if we go ahead and zoom in, very similar in terms of clarity of what I see here with my human eyes to what you guys are seeing there on camera. If we kind of go off a little bit to the right, there still is some spill on it, but not a ton. Definitely a hot spot, maybe a little bit broader hot spot than the Modlite if I had to compare the two side by side on that front. And why don't I just take it out and do exactly that? There we have the Modlite, and then the Surefire. We'll put them up in the trees to kind of give you a better idea. I do think the Modlite might be a touch tighter in terms of the hot spot. Surefire now over here on the left, Modlite over here on the left, rather, Surefire on the right, I should say. And just, they're close, but there's a slight difference. Here we have the output from the Streamlight TLR1. You can see a much broader beam, especially if you look down here at the bush. It's just fully illuminated. There's no edge on it or anything like that as we go off to the side. It just does a little bit better job at situational awareness in that regard. Focused in there. You guys can see that it is definitely bright for sure. It has great candela, obviously, for a pistol light, but when we compare it to, say, the Modlite, it's just not quite the same. Again, that is the Modlite. That is the Streamlight. It's been a few days since the last beam shot y'all just saw, and we have, again, the OKW head. There is the little fishing shack bush here. You guys can get an idea of what it looks like with the OK head, and we will switch it out to the PLH head here, V2, just for comparison's sake. Now we have the PLH V2 mounted up. You guys can see exactly what that looks like. A little bit broader hotspot there, maybe a little bit brighter on the actual bush here to our right. And back to the OKW. Again, we'll zoom in with the OKW and zoom on out. As if we didn't have enough controversial points already in this video, let's talk about the switches. So the switches on this do not give you the ability to have a momentary on, unlike any other pistol light on the market that I'm aware of. So basically, if you're firing one-handed, you can either push down with your trigger finger or you can push up with your trigger finger. That will give you constant on only. The middle position is off. Now, of course, if you're firing two-handed, same thing, push down, or you can push up with your non-firing hand to activate the light. But when you're done, you have to push it back into off. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this at all. That said, there are people who are trainers whose opinions I highly respect that don't think it's an issue. It's not my personal preference, but if you guys don't think it's an issue, that's cool. One thing I've found when using it is that when firing, say you're firing, lights on, and you're on the trigger, as soon as you come off the trigger, what I found is easiest for me to do is take my off hand and kind of rotate it and come up to turn the light off. That just seems the most natural to me. You can stay on, you're still in a good firing position. You break your grip, obviously, but it's a little less awkward to me than coming down here and fishing around with my thumb. Now, for folks who don't know what I'm talking about, although I realize most of you probably do, for example, with the Surefire or even the Streamlight, there are multiple ways that you can just hit it for momentary. So basically, you can just come on, press forward, do whatever you need to do, release, and you are off. And especially inside of a building, me personally, I like that ability so that way you can move without having a light on. There's a number of different reasons why you might want that. The downside to something like this, or even the Streamlight option, is that the chances of having a negligent discharge with your light, i.e. your light comes on when you don't want it to, is higher. Particularly when coming out of a holster. A lot of folks have issues with that with the Streamlights. I personally haven't, not in any type of force on force or simulations type scenario anyway, but I know some folks have. So if that's something you're very concerned with, the Modlite definitely is a good option. I would say you are less likely to have a light ND with this Modlite system than you are with the other systems, but I personally don't like it, but that is just me. So could just be a me thing. Off camera, I've been waiting about 40 minutes for the wind to die down, and I'm not waiting anymore. We're just pushing through. So a few things to mention before we close it out is the material. So it's made out of 6061 aluminum, has a nice hard coat anodizing on there. The finish is very, very good. Durability on these lights has been good in terms of impact. I've not heard of any issues with that at all. It has a very high quality lens on there. So in terms of quality of materials, not mad about it at all. The actual price on this is going to reflect the fact that it is made in America, at least as made in America as possible. Those of you guys who have watched the channel for a while know that for years now, there has not been any emitters made in America at all. So the LED emitters in there are made overseas. That said, everything else is made in America. There's nothing Modlite can do about that unless they want to start an emitter plant, which seems like it might be prohibitively expensive. And the lights are coming in right now for right around $330. That is their MSRP. That said, most places actually list them for that. You can find discount codes and things like that across the internet. Code Mr. Guns and Gear, for example, will get you 10% off with the link that will be down below in the video description if you guys are watching anywhere besides YouTube. So you guys, that does help out a little bit with the price. That said, it is still very expensive. And especially when you consider you can get TLR 1 HL MSRP on these, I think is like 150, and the X300 Turbo MSRP is pretty similar, but these tend to go on sale more than these do. Speaking of sales, if you guys are looking for good deals on these, definitely check me out on my social media that you see here on your screen. I post these up on sales, heavy discounts all the time. That said, my thoughts on the light. I think right now the 2023 version of it is a very good light. I think the ability to change the output that you have here with the OKW or the PLHV2 head, you can pick whichever one you want from the factory, of course, but if you want to change it later, I think that is a good thing. I think from what I've seen anyway, they've solved the issue with the recoil boss that's inside there breaking just by using an aluminum part, and it seems to be quite durable. My switches have been very durable. So does it seem like it's a good light? In 2023, I would say yes. In 2021, I would say absolutely not. But it does seem that they have fixed the issues they had. Would I choose this for my home defense light? Absolutely not, in no way. And for me, the big issue with it is the switching. Like I said, there are people who I respect a lot who like the switches on these. I absolutely do not. I prefer something with a momentary, but regardless, I think that pretty much sums up my opinion of the light and basically gives you guys an idea of what to expect if you're going to purchase a light. So we'll close the video out there as the wind continues to pick up. I want to thank the folks at Brownells again for sending the light out. Again, I have no relationship at all with Modlite, and Brownells helps us bring this type of content to you guys, so I appreciate that. If you guys are new here and you're not subscribed, definitely hit the subscribe button. We do a lot of videos like this here on the channel, usually with less wind. And if you're subscribed and you're not seeing 2 to 4 videos a week here on the channel, you can sign up for my email list here. This email goes out once a month, and it has all of the emails since the previous email went out. So just once a month, not super spammy. And then again, like I mentioned, follow me on all my social media if you guys want deals, updates. If this light breaks, I'm not going to make a full YouTube video. I'm going to put up a video on my social media real quick just to let everybody know. If it continues to do awesome, the same will be true. So that's where all my updates are and the deals. And with that, speaking of deals, we also have a daily deals email. It goes out every day, as the name indicates, and it has 6 to 8 of the best deals that we find around the internet in there. If it's in that email, it's the cheapest that I know of anywhere on the internet on that particular day, trying to block the wind. And that way it saves you guys some time and hopefully saves you some money as well, because I've already done the price comparisons for you. And I think with that, guys, we're going to close this out before we get blown off the dock. Thank you all for watching. I truly appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing everybody in the next video.